The rain hit hard enough to sting my face as I stood outside apartment 4B holding a cardboard box full of memories I should have thrown away months ago. A gray hoodie. Old concert tickets. A silver necklace. Pictures of us smiling like people who thought forever was real. My fingers tightened around the box while thunder shook the building. I hadn't seen Emma in 6 months. 6 months since she looked me in the eyes and said, "Maybe love just isn't enough anymore." That sentence ruined me. I finally forced myself to knock. But before my hand touched the door, it swung open. And standing there wasn't Emma. It was Sophie, her roommate. She wore an oversized sweatshirt, messy dark hair, and an expression that immediately made my stomach drop. "Ethan," she whispered. I swallowed hard. I came to return her things. For a second, Sophie didn't speak. She just stared at the box like it carried a bomb inside it. Then she said the sentence that changed everything. "She's gone." The hallway suddenly felt colder. "What do you mean gone?" "She moved out last week." I blinked at her. "Without telling me?" Sophie looked away. "That sounds like Emma." Pain crawled into my chest again. Even after all these months, hearing her name still hurt like a fresh wound. I nodded awkwardly and lifted the box. "Can you just give this to her?" Sophie hesitated before stepping aside slowly. "You can stay if you want. It's pouring outside." I should have said no. Instead, I walked into the apartment where my entire relationship still existed in pieces. The couch where Emma used to sleep against my shoulder. The kitchen where we danced at midnight. The framed photos still hanging on the wall. Everything looked frozen in time. Except Emma was gone. And Sophie was looking at me like she'd been waiting for this moment longer than I realized. That was the first night I noticed something strange. Sophie didn't seem sad Emma left. She seemed relieved. The apartment smelled exactly the same. Vanilla candles. Coffee. Lavender detergent. It was terrifying how memories could survive longer than relationships. Sophie handed me a towel while I stood awkwardly near the kitchen island dripping rainwater onto the floor. "You still take your coffee black?" she asked casually. I frowned. "You remember that?" A tiny smile touched her lips. "You dated my roommate for 3 years, Ethan." "I remember a lot." That answer felt heavier than it should have. I sat at the counter while she made coffee, and for the first time, I really looked at her. Sophie had always been in the background of my relationship with Emma. Quiet. Observant. The girl who disappeared into her room whenever Emma and I argued. But tonight felt different. She looked tired. Not physically. Emotionally. Like someone carrying secrets too long. "You two still talk?" I asked carefully. Sophie shook her head while stirring cream into her cup. "Not really." "That bad?" "She changes when she gets bored." I looked up sharply. "What's that supposed to mean?" Sophie leaned against the counter. "Emma likes people when they make her feel alive. The second life gets normal, she runs." I hated how accurate that sounded. Part of me wanted to defend Emma anyway. Because even after heartbreak, love still protects people who destroy you. "She wasn't always like that," I muttered. Sophie gave me a sad look. "You sure?" Silence settled between us. Then my eyes landed on something near the living room bookshelf. A framed photo. Not of Emma. Of me. Laughing on the apartment balcony during a barbecue last summer. I frowned. "Why do you have that?" Sophie's face changed instantly. "Oh." She grabbed the frame too quickly. It was mixed in with my stuff. But the way she held it told me she was lying. And suddenly memories started replaying differently in my head. The way Sophie always listened when I talked. The way she remembered tiny details about me. The way she looked at me now. Not like Emma used to. Softer. Deeper. Dangerous. Then Sophie quietly said something that made my chest tighten. "You deserved better than how she left you." And for the first time since the breakup. I started wondering if Sophie had wanted to say that for a very long time. I should have left after coffee. Instead, I stayed until midnight talking to Sophie like we'd known each other forever. The rain outside never stopped. Neither did the tension building between us. "You know what the worst part was?" I finally admitted quietly. Sophie looked up from the couch. "What?" "She didn't even fight for us." My voice cracked slightly. 3 years together, and she ended it like canceling a subscription. Sophie's jaw tightened. "She didn't deserve you." I laughed bitterly. You keep saying that. Because it's true. The room went quiet after that. Too quiet. The kind where every glance suddenly means something. Then Sophie stood up and walked toward Emma's old bedroom. She hesitated near the doorway before saying softly, "There's something you should probably know." A strange feeling hit my stomach. What? She was seeing someone before the breakup. The words slammed into me like a punch. I stared at her. What? Sophie looked guilty even saying it. I found out accidentally. A few weeks before she ended things with you. My chest burned instantly. No. Emma wouldn't. She would. The certainty in Sophie's voice hurt more than the confession itself. I stood up too fast. Why didn't you tell me? Because I tried. What? She made me promise not to. Anger exploded inside me. And you listened? Sophie looked devastated. I thought she'd choose you in the end. I turned away, breathing hard. Everything suddenly made sense. The distance. The coldness. The random fights. Emma had already left emotionally long before she physically walked away. You know what's pathetic? I said quietly. I still came here hoping maybe she missed me. Sophie stepped closer carefully. She lost someone who loved her completely. I looked at her. And what did I lose? Her eyes locked onto mine. Someone who never understood your value. The way she said it didn't sound casual anymore. It sounded personal. Dangerously personal. Then the lights suddenly went out across the apartment. Darkness swallowed the room. Thunder shook the windows. And somewhere in that darkness, Sophie reached for my hand. The apartment glowed with candlelight while the storm raged outside. Everything felt unreal. Sophie lit small candles around the living room, their soft orange light dancing across her face while thunder echoed through the city. You'd think New York would prepare better for storms, she joked quietly. I barely heard her. Because all I could focus on was the fact her hand still lingered near mine after guiding me through the dark. Every instinct told me this was wrong. My ex-girlfriend's roommate. My ex-girlfriend's apartment. My ex-girlfriend's memories everywhere. But heartbreak does strange things to lonely people. Sophie sat beside me on the couch holding 2 glasses of wine. To survival, she said softly. I smirked faintly. That depressing? You have no idea. We drank in silence for a moment. Then she suddenly asked, "Did you really love her?" The question caught me off guard. Yeah, I answered honestly. More than I probably should have. Sophie stared into her wine glass. She never loved people the way you did. I frowned. You sound like you hate her. I don't hate her. Her voice lowered. I just got tired of watching good people get hurt. The way she said it made my chest tighten. Was I really that obvious? You were devastatingly obvious. We both laughed softly. Then silence returned again. Dangerous silence. Sophie looked beautiful in candlelight. Not flashy beautiful. Real beautiful. The kind you notice slowly until suddenly you can't stop noticing it. You know, she whispered, Emma used to complain about how much attention you gave me. I blinked. What? She thought you liked talking to me too much. That's ridiculous. Maybe. Her eyes met mine. But she noticed the way you smiled around me. The air between us shifted instantly. You're drunk, I said quietly. Maybe a little. But neither of us moved away. Thunder cracked loudly outside. And before I could stop myself, I asked the question burning in my mind. How long have you looked at me like this? Sophie froze. Then gave a small heartbreaking smile. Long enough to know I shouldn't. And somehow, that answer only made me want her more. I woke up on the couch just before sunrise. For a second, I forgot where I was. Then I smelled coffee. Sophie stood in the kitchen wearing gray sweatpants and one of those oversized college hoodies girls somehow make look unfairly attractive. The morning light softened everything about her. For the first time in months, I didn't wake up thinking about Emma. That realization scared me. You sleep like you're fighting demons, Sophie teased gently. I rubbed my face. Maybe I am. She handed me coffee, and our fingers brushed briefly. Tiny contact. Massive effect. Neither of us mentioned it. You can stay another day, she said carefully. If you want. I should have left. Instead, I stayed. And somehow one day became 2. Then 3. We cooked together. Watched terrible movies. Talked until 2 a.m. about childhood dreams and broken families and the versions of ourselves we pretended to be around other people. And somewhere during those nights, I started falling for her. Not suddenly. Slowly. Dangerously. One evening we sat on the fire escape overlooking the city lights when Sophie finally asked the question hanging between us. Do you feel guilty? I knew exactly what she meant. Yes. Me too. But neither of us walked away. She looked down at the traffic below. Emma always treated love like it was temporary. I looked at her carefully. And you? Sophie's eyes met mine. Permanent. That single word hit harder than any kiss could. Then her phone buzzed. Her face instantly changed. Panic. I frowned. What happened? She locked the screen too quickly. Nothing. Sophie. It's complicated. My stomach tightened. Was that Emma? She didn't answer. Which was answer enough. Then she whispered something that made the air leave my lungs. She's coming back tonight. The apartment felt completely different after Sophie told me Emma was coming back. Smaller. Hotter. Like the walls themselves knew we'd crossed lines that couldn't be uncrossed. When were you planning to tell me? I asked quietly. Sophie looked miserable. I didn't know if she'd actually come. And now? She says she forgot some things. I laughed bitterly. Funny. That's exactly why I came here. Sophie paced nervously across the kitchen. You should probably leave before she gets here. The words hurt more than they should have. Oh. No, that's not what I mean. Then what do you mean? She stopped moving. And finally admitted the truth. I don't trust myself around you. Silence. Heavy silence. My heartbeat started pounding harder. Sophie, she's my best friend, she whispered. But every second you're here feels like I'm betraying her. I stepped closer carefully. And what about what she did to me? That doesn't make this right. She was shaking now. Emotionally unraveling right in front of me. I tried not to fall for you, she admitted. I swear I tried. The confession destroyed whatever self-control remained between us. Because deep down, I'd already fallen for her too. Then suddenly the apartment buzzer rang downstairs. Both of us froze instantly. Emma. Sophie looked terrified. You need to go. But neither of us moved. The buzzer rang again. Longer this time. Then my phone vibrated unexpectedly. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. Hello? A familiar voice shattered my entire world. Ethan? Emma. My chest tightened instantly. Then she said the one thing I never expected to hear. I made a mistake. At the exact same moment, Sophie quietly started crying behind me. Emma arrived 5 minutes later. And the second she walked through the apartment door, everything exploded. She froze when she saw me standing there. What are you doing here? I almost laughed at the irony. I came to return your things. Her eyes shifted toward Sophie. Then toward the candles still sitting around the apartment. Then toward the 2 wine glasses on the counter. Understanding hit her face instantly. Oh my God. Soph, I started. No, Emma snapped. Are you serious right now? Sophie looked shattered. Emma, please. You slept with him? We didn't. But honestly, emotionally, we already had. Emma turned toward me with disbelief burning in her eyes. You moved on with my roommate? The accusation ignited something inside me. You cheated on me. The room went dead silent. Emma's expression changed immediately. Sophie told you? I looked at her in disbelief. So it's true? Emma looked away. That tiny movement answered everything. 3 years together. Destroyed in 1 second. You know what hurts most? I whispered. I would have forgiven anything if you'd just been honest. Emma's eyes watered instantly. I was scared. No, Sophie suddenly said firmly. You were selfish. Emma stared at her best friend like she'd become a stranger. You're choosing him over me? Sophie's voice trembled. I'm choosing someone who actually knows how to love people. That sentence cut deeper than any scream could. Emma grabbed her bag angrily. Unbelievable. Then she stopped at the door and looked at me one last time. You really love her already? I opened my mouth. But Sophie answered first. Quietly. Yes. Emma's face completely broke. And for the first time, I realized heartbreak doesn't only destroy relationships. Sometimes it destroys friendships too. Then Emma walked out the door. And Sophie collapsed crying the second it closed. Sophie cried harder than I expected. Not small tears. Full-body heartbreak. Because losing Emma wasn't just losing a friend. It was losing years of history. Shared birthdays. Secrets. Late-night conversations. A whole life. I sat beside her on the floor while the city lights flickered outside the apartment windows. "She hates me now," Sophie whispered through tears. I shook my head gently. "No. She's hurt. She'll never forgive this." Her voice cracked completely. "And maybe she shouldn't." I looked at her carefully. "Do you regret us?" That question hung heavily between us. Sophie wiped her eyes slowly, then looked directly at me. "That's the problem." My chest tightened. "I don't." Neither did I. And that terrified me. Because for the first time in years, what I felt was real. Not dramatic. Not exhausting. Not temporary. Real. Sophie leaned against the couch, exhausted emotionally. "I spent so long watching you love the wrong person," she whispered. I looked at her. "You knew? From the beginning." The honesty in her voice broke something inside me. "All those nights you came over after fighting with Emma? I'd hear you defending her even when she hurt you." A painful smile touched her lips. "You loved her harder every time she pulled away." That was true. And maybe that's why I never noticed someone else quietly loving me in the background. Then Sophie finally asked the question neither of us wanted to face. "What happens now?" I didn't know. Everything about this situation was messy. Complicated. Wrong in ways the world would judge instantly. But feelings don't ask permission before becoming real. I reached for her hand slowly. And this time, she didn't pull away. Then I whispered the truth I'd been fighting all night. "I think meeting you ruined my ability to go back to who I was before." Sophie stared at me silently. Then kissed me. Soft. Emotional. Like two broken people finally stopping their fall at the same time. And somehow, it felt less like betrayal. And more like finally coming home. 6 months later, I stood in the same apartment holding another cardboard box. But this time, it wasn't full of heartbreak. It was full of Sophie's things. Because we were moving together. Life changes fast in ways nobody warns you about. The girl who once existed quietly in the background of my failed relationship had somehow become the center of my entire world. And honestly, that scared me sometimes. Because losing Emma taught me how quickly love can disappear. But loving Sophie taught me something different. Real love doesn't feel like chaos. It feels like peace. Sophie walked into the living room carrying tape rolls and laughed when she saw me staring into space. "What?" I smiled softly. "Just thinking. Dangerous activity." I pulled her closer gently. "You know what's weird?" "What?" "If Emma never broke my heart, I never would have found you." Her smile faded slightly. Because even now, Emma's shadow still existed between us sometimes. Not as pain. As history. Then suddenly there was a knock at the door. Sophie froze. So did I. Because somehow, we both knew who it was. She opened the door slowly. Emma stood there holding a small plant awkwardly in her hands. The silence was unbearable. Then Emma looked at both of us and gave the saddest smile I'd ever seen. "I just came to say, I'm sorry." No screaming. No drama. Just honesty. Finally. Sophie's eyes filled with tears instantly. Emma handed her the plant. "It's hard to hate people who are actually good together." Then she looked at me one last time. "You loved me when I didn't know how to love myself." My chest tightened painfully. "And she loves you the way you always deserved." Then Emma walked away. This time for real. And strangely, it didn't feel tragic anymore. It felt like the ending all three of us were supposed to reach from the beginning. Sometimes the person who breaks your heart is only leading you toward the person meant to heal it.